It's being called a pandemic of hate right here in California.
Reported hate crimes in the state were up last year by almost a third overall, and racially motivated crimes were up by 2/3.
Sparking critical conversations, taking California's top law enforcement official across California on a listening tour. The latest stop, yesterday in Oakland.
We all know that Oaklanders are prideful of our diversity and inclusion, and yet hate is a disease here, right here.
In the streets of Oakland, Chinatown, and other areas like Little Saigon, you just in the beginning saw empty streets. It had become a ghost town.
They'll attack an Asian today, a black person the next day, somebody from the LGBT community the next day, and the reason they do that is because they see those people as not belonging here.
Good morning. This is Bay Current for Wednesday, September 22nd. From the KCBS radio studios in San Francisco, I'm Matt Pittman. Today, my conversation with State Attorney General Rob Bonta about the alarming rise in hate crimes in our state and how conversations like the one in Oakland yesterday are a vital step towards reversing these ugly trends. Mr. Attorney General, coming back home, right, to Oakland, maybe a little bittersweet in some of the conversations that are going on. What did you hear today?
We heard powerful stories, personal stories, passionate stories, and painful stories from individuals who've been working in the trenches with communities who, as you just mentioned, while right here in the Bay Area, right here in Oakland, a city and a region known for being progressive and forward-thinking and social justice oriented, that their communities are not immune from hate, that they're suffering, that they're hurting, that they crave and are aggressively looking for and identifying solutions. So it was powerful and painful, but I also was reminded of what I didn't need to be reminded about, because I've been the assembly member for 9 years here, that we have some of the most forward-thinking, compassionate, thoughtful minds and leaders right here in Oakland. And what we can do here and accomplish here and scale throughout the state is very powerful. So I left with inspiration as well, that we, like so many other challenges, we've had many in the past. We're in the middle of an intersecting set now with a pandemic of hate and a pandemic of COVID, with a climate crisis, wildfires, a racial justice reckoning, that we will emerge, and we'll emerge stronger.
You're early in the process of doing events like this throughout the state. Are there any striking similarities in these two conversations that you've had?
Yeah, so two separate conversations. The one in San Francisco was a week or so ago. Okay. But yes, many commonalities. One being that no specific community is immune from being the victim of or the target of hate. We had Muslim American leaders, we had Afghani American leaders, we had Jewish American leaders, African American, LGBTQ, Asian American, and all were saying the same thing, that hate is on the rise, hate is at a level that is intolerable, and that we must do everything in our power to address hate. And so that was item number one, that no one is immune and every community is suffering. Of course, there's been a lot of appropriate attention on the fact of anti-AAPI hate, but it goes beyond that. The need for trust between the victims of hate and those who would provide healing and support for them. That trust is not always, doesn't always exist when it comes to law enforcement or government. And that some nonprofit organizations are very well located, have earned trust over years from communities to be an appropriate source of support for prevention of hate crimes in the first place, and perhaps if it happens tragically, for healing if it does. And so the critical role of community organizations. And then the need for data, really important. Hate crimes are underreported. Right. Why? Part of it goes to what I just said, that there's lack of trust. So those who are collecting the data don't always have people who are willing to come to them to share. So even though there's spikes in hate crimes and hate incidents, we also know that they're underreported, so it's even more than is being reported. And then finally, some of the limits of the current legal regime. The definition of a hate crime, many believe, is something that's unattainable to prove in a court of law, and that we might want to reconsider what constitutes a hate crime in the eyes of the law, because some people are just very pained by the fact that what they know to be a hate incident, a hate-motivated attack, is not treated in the eyes of the law as such. So those are all commonalities. There were others as well, but those are some that come to mind.
AAPI is still front and center since the pandemic started. How much of that is still attributed to the language of the former president and the former administration and the damage done, and how long-lasting is that?
The vast majority of it is. I mean, how our leaders speak, especially the president of the United States with the biggest bully pulpit in the world and the biggest megaphone on the planet, how you speak matters. And the prior president, President Obama, spoke in terms of unity and our commonalities and how we move forward together, how our differences are a strength. And President Trump, when he was president, spoke in the language of xenophobia and hate and discrimination and racism. And it gave permission and license to people who were under stress, who were in painful positions, who were dealing with economic challenges and a pandemic, to turn on our fellow countrymen. And that was wrong. Right. And so while Trump is gone, Trumpism remains. And it doesn't go away. The coattails continue, and the pain continues along with it. And so it's incumbent upon our current leaders to speak differently, to talk more about us and coming together, to not scapegoat, to not talk about a world of scarcity and zero sum, that one person's success doesn't mean someone else's detriment, that we can rise together, that you can be successful and I can be successful too. And in fact, that's how it must happen. So we're in that process, and it won't happen overnight, but anytime we can make progress, we should. Anytime we can move the needle, we must, and that's what today's about.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
One man intimately familiar with hate crimes is himself at the forefront of the fight to quell hate-related violence, not just as president of the Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce, but as a victim as well. Carl Chan. If you don't mind, I'd like to just have you kind of recount that story and tell me what happened to you in April.
Oh, so basically on that day, I was on my way trying to meet with another victim of crime, and walking down the street, and I would never believe that could happen to me, myself. On the day, it was a broad daylight, and someone ambushed me from behind, calling racial slurs, and then, hit me down, and I down the ground. But fortunately, I was able to get up. And when I look around, I didn't see any camera, so I was able, fortunately, took out my phone and take the pictures, and then call the police and send it to the police department. And so the guy who attacked me was apprehended, and it was quite fortunate. Otherwise, I was so worried that the same guy would be going out and hurting other people.
But since the start of the pandemic, you'd mentioned a couple seconds ago, Carl, that you never think this would happen to you. You had seen the victims. You'd heard the stories of people in your community, communities like this one throughout the Bay Area. How trying, how fearful and troubling have these months, this year and a half and continuing since the pandemic started? How difficult has it been as an Asian American in the United States?
It has been so difficult for not only for myself but for the entire community, because when we get starting working on these many issues and incidents, it's actually starting last year, 2020 in January. Yeah. So when all these many incidents happened, I was able to work with district attorney in Alameda County, Nancy O'Malley, and she was able to help us to put out a video and get it translated so people can report in crimes, especially hate crimes. Fortunately, we have many people calling in, but unfortunately, when people, after telling them about the incidents, they were so afraid to tell them their own names and addresses and getting the report done. But they did call me, and I asked them why. I guess the major reason is they are afraid of retaliation. I guess hate crime is really something that nobody would like to see. But while I'm saying all these bad things happening, but we do see many good things also happening, which is that we have many people from within our community, in the AAPI community, but also outside of this community. Many people came out, and they're saying that enough is enough. They want to do something to make those changes. You
had called upon the governor to declare a state of emergency in the wake of such a dramatic uptick in the number of hate crimes. What's been the traction there? What's been your communication with them like? And what does a state of emergency against hate crime look like to you?
Well, I think, to the point that when we're seeing the rising numbers of murders, robberies, and people using guns, it's almost unstoppable. And, without, calling on this, our governor, declaring a state of emergency. I understand it's a political process, but we try not to make it political. We just want to making sure that we receive enough help. And I'm so glad that besides our own community, I was able to ask Bishop Bob Jackson in the black community, many of this faith-based leadership, they're also in support of it. It's not about, in this case, it's not only about, the racial attack or hate crimes. It's all about crimes in general, affecting basically the entire city. So when I make this call, I was a little surprised that, Governor Newsom responding back less than 24 hours. Wow. And also sending Highway Patrol helping us for our needs. And my understanding is that our Chief Armstrong also did a wonderful work working out with the Highway Patrol so that they're able to patrol where most important intersections where they might have seen more and more crime in those areas.
That's what's in the Bay Current today. For more, visit kcbsradio.com and the Odyssey app, where you can find more podcasts like this one. On the app, make KCBS Radio one of your favorite stations to receive alerts on breaking news and exclusive audio. Thanks for listening. I'm Matt Pittman. Let's chat again tomorrow.